Okay, so I'm going to cover just the basics of the render settings for this assignment, which is not an animation, but just a print resolution single frame render. And then I'll cover some finer points depending on what you want to do with your background and if you have a window or something. So first, let's just, I have my scene here. It's rendering. It's a little dark. It's dark for a reason. Of course, one of the reasons is that I have two walls and a ceiling in here that are hidden, but are still blocking the light in the space, right? So um, let's go ahead and jump in. So the first thing, I've got the IPR going here. I'm going to go into the output, and instead of the default, whether it's 1280 720 or if you're 1920 by 1080, what we want is a square format ratio, right? We've done this centered isometric room. So just for the purpose of this tutorial, well, in fact, I'll just do the exact numbers just so no one gets confused. I was going to do 1000 by 1000 since I have a small screen here, but right. So you should see, and it might change your relationship to the camera. This is just something to think about based on that ratio. I'm going to fix it a different way besides moving my camera, but we'll come back to that. So here's the resolution, 3000 by 3000. I do not need to change this here, right? These are the effective pixels that I need. I don't really care about this. The other thing too is we just want the current frame is going to render, right? So it's just going to do one frame. Under save, we want to make this 16-bit, and you can save it PNG or TIFF, whatever you want. That's it. And then, of course, you want to tell it where you're going to save it. So if I was just going to save it to my desktop, I think is fine. Right, and I'll go in here, and I'll call this Variable Render Settings. Okay. So that's good. Yep, that's all we need. I guess the last thing is for the redshift quality. I would probably just, again, there's so many different ways to optimize this. I would just put this at high quality. That should be fine for what we're doing. Okay, and then at that point, I would just, fire up the render to picture viewer. Right, you can see it's building its little light map, a radiance cloud, and then it's going to start rendering through there. Obviously, this is not a good idea, right? I went to all this trouble to model it, and I have all this space around it. So let's fix that. Yes, I want to stop. Okay, so I'm going to go into my camera that I just added. I'll admit that this was, there we go. This was an older scene that I copy and pasted into the newer version of Cinema. So I'm going to go in here. Your camera should look like this. If it looks different, it's because you originally started creating the scene in an older Cinema file. And now you're back to this one. So under the object itself, it has a focal length of 80. Now, if you want to, you can just, oops, didn't mean to do that, do my view. I'm just going to leave my camera there, and instead of zooming in or moving the camera in, I'm just going to use the lens feature. I'm going to use this as like a long lens to kind of zoom this in. In fact, I wonder what, let's go 180. Okay, that's kind of flattening out the space a little bit, which I like. As I talked about in class, I didn't want like a wide angle approach. I want kind of something that flattens the perspective so it's more a true isometric view or closer to an isometric view. So that's working for me, I would say right now. Okay, so that's thing one. Now, if you do have a space that's kind of dark, though I don't think most of you do, I think some of you have internal lights, which certainly would help the scene. Again, this is just an example scene. I have a redshift sun and sky object in here. I could turn that off and turn on a dome light. Let's see what I have that set to from the other. Oops, dome light. Okay, so then the default for this would be 0, right? You can see this image, and I'll go ahead and do a little IPR. Right, so this is still way dark, right? Because the other thing too is there's a piece of glass here that it's being absorbed through. There's other ways to fix that, but I'm not going to get into that. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn both of these on because I want this hard shadow that gets created by the sun, but I also want a little bit of the colored illumination that's coming from this. And I think what I'll do is each one of these has a intensity multiplier. I'm just going to make the sun and sky 2 so that this gets a little brighter. And I'm going to go to the dome and I'll make it something really high. All right, so that's probably too much. And I'll do 3.5 just to tone that down. Right? And depending on what's going on in the scene, with maybe this would be better at 1.5. I'm just kind of increasing the intensity. There's another thing I could do with changing the exposure on the camera. I'm not going to do that in this one. But anyway, so I think the lighting looks nice. It's a little dark. That's what I was aiming for in this setup. Okay. I should say for this camera, I chose under the optical, I turned on bokeh. I used the little eyedropper to click on what I wanted to focus on. And I made the aperture really wide open. In fact, this is past what you would normally have a camera do. But the fastest lens you're going to get is a 1. I really, so I'm breaking some optical rules here to really force that miniature effect. But that's totally up to you. Okay, so the other thing that so I like what's happening here, but I don't want my background to be all white. I want it to be kind of a darker gray in this instance. So let's let's go into the redshift sun and sky. And if I look on in fact, let's do the dome light first. The dome light we've used before, you can turn off the background. So that won't be seen as the background image, right? So right now it's just using it looks gray back there, which is not half bad, but you can see it's from the sun and sky. So let's say I wanted to change that or have a little different control. Technically, you could go into the sun and sky and change the ground color. I want to leave that where it is. And I'll go into this one to the sky, and it actually has some overrides, and I can tell it not to be in the background, right? So now I have a black color. This is working okay for me. I'm still getting what looks like the sun and sky in the reflection because that glass is there. If I were to take that glass out of there, it would just be black. I'll leave that glass in there. And then what I ended up doing was duplicating the piece of glass that's in there. It was just a polygon, and I moved it back and I scaled it up a little bit so that it sat outside the glass. And then I created a material. If I were to scroll down to the bottom, you can just turn up the weight and make whatever color. And I don't need any of these other things. I wouldn't need like reflection or any of that stuff if you need to create that material. Somehow, there we go. Let's restart oh, what happened to my cloner? My cloner got deleted. Well, that's another reason my room is not working. Like I mentioned, I copy and pasted this over from another scene. There we go. I just had to reset it. Okay. All right, so I have my floor in there. Let's go back. Okay, so I created this second window, right? And I put an emissive material on it, right? I just turned on emission. And I put it in here, and you can see it now looks like I have light coming into the room. Right? This is all bright back here. But one of the problems is that it's blocking the light from the sun and from the dome light as well. So for that window, I'm going to right click, render tags, and redshift object. I'm going to turn on the visibility overrides for this tag. And I'll just tell it I don't want it to cast shadows, self shadow, or receive shadows. Right? So it's just producing this kind of fake light that's in the scene. All right. And again, this is just a plane, right? It's just this in here. So you can just position it however you need to. So it's just outside the window and covers the window. All right. And then the last thing, let's say I want to change this background color so it's not black. I want to have a little more artistic control over it. Again, in the camera, there is a display tag. Oh, there, sorry, not display, background. There it is. And right now it's getting that from the render settings. I'm going to turn on the override and I'm going to give it a color. Right, and that's a little much, so let's turn down the darkness and the saturation and maybe pull up a little more of the greenish color. I'm just choosing this because it's kind of playing off of this brown color. Okay, so this is within the IPR, and again, for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to change this to 1000 by 1000. Okay. And then I'll do render to picture viewer. So again, a couple extra controls that you have in there as it relates to the look of the total render, right? Controlling the background. We've done some stuff with the lighting, using a dome light and the physical sun and sky together, so that I get a more illumination coming in from that sky dome. I think it's black over here because I think I'm missing an image texture. I didn't copy over from the old project, but anyways, I just think that blue sets it off just different. And I'm just kind of art directing to get a look and feel. You don't have to use blue or whatever, and you can leave it black if you want, but I just wanted to show that you have some options as far as how you might pull that together. Okay, so 12 minutes in, I'm going to call it good, and for my Blender users, I will have a separate video out for you a little later. Happy rendering.